Well, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. It's P Two Finger, and I'm here with a review. This is a non-paid. I bought this. I bought this with my own hard-earned money that my wife made at her job. So this is the type of soldering iron that I prefer to use. And we're going to go into what I like about it. It's typically, they're like $8.99, and they'll come with a little tin stand and a sponge, or they'll give you like this kit. This one, if you look, you can find them for cheaper. Like this one, I think I paid $3.99 or $4.99 for, and more recently, I got one for $2.39, free shipping, but it has a Euro plug on it. So what I will do is snip this plug off and put an extension on it. So because I like if I'm soldering on a station, I like to have a little bit extra, just a little bit longer than this, maybe. I don't know, I got to measure it out. I have a real long one, and that might be too long. And one of the things you got to keep in common is the longer you add to that, the more load is going to be on the system, and ultimately the colder your tip. Now, the reason that I really like these is, number one, they're cheap. So when they fail, replacing them is not a big deal. And number two, you can get the tips super cheap. That's the main thing. They have this adjuster here, which I never, more than likely, what I will do on this is probably put some dum-dum on it. I had one where I had masking tape wrapped around the attenuator, which masking tape is the worst. It leaches gloop, sticky stuff after a while. And what this will do is make sure that it's always set at its highest point. Typically, Chinese, the super affordable or the cheap Chinese stuff is often overrated, meaning it'll say, this is a 40-watt iron, and it's more like a 20. So this temperature adjustment here, I've got this taped down. That's the only modification I do. I'll tape that down. And then the whole thing about this is these tips. You can find, they have 5-pack or 10-pack of these. I was paying 99 cents for a 5-pack. Okay. Now, since COVID and prices, shipping has gone up, you're going to pay a little bit more for these tips. And they have 5-packs where each tip will be slightly different for different soldering type jobs. I prefer this. This is what I really love, just the stock little pointy one. And I find that by replacing it, the more often you replace these, the happier you'll be. Because there's nothing like starting out with a fresh tip, which you'll see, if let's say you're building on Vero, your solder joints will be very small and accurate. The longer they go and this metal comes off of here and it gets all charred looking, it just gets more sloppy, and the amount of solder that will stick to this is larger. And that's probably because of bad, like I'm using plumber's flux on it. That acid is probably removing all this coating on here right away. The thermal transfer thing of this getting hot, not really a problem on this. However they designed it, because I've got another, the one iron I've been using lately, I got to get that out of there. I bought this one. It was a 40, and I can't find replacement tips for it, but it runs a little hotter than this. I like working with a hot iron. So this is the style of iron I really like. I've got to warn you, like if you're into this hobby, I would twist your arm to get yourself one of these. This is it. When you order it, look for the tips. This is a clone of a Heiko 900 is what it's a clone of. And that has, the Heiko 900 has a goofy plug on it to plug into the 900 station. They don't use this type of plug. So Heiko 900 style tips will fit on this, but that replacement tip, the 5-pack or the 10-pack, that's all over eBay, that's for this iron. Now, I ordered one from a more reputable, like it might even have been a U.S. seller, and they were dark gray. The iron was dark gray. It was not blue. But it was the same product. It was a little bit more. It was like $7 or $9 I may have even paid for it, and it looked like it was better made. And that one, it ran cold. So I cannot recommend. What I'm recommending to you is look for the cheapest one you can get of these. Try one out and get the replacement tips and replace the tips often, and you'll be a happy boy. So that's my tip for you guys, especially if you're not building pedals. Like if you're just a guitar player and you don't have a soldering iron, I don't know how you're surviving. You know, you can save yourself a lot of money by figuring out how to repair cables when they break, because they do. They break. And then stuff like fixing your jack in the guitar when it breaks. It's endless. As a guitar player, the application of a soldering iron, I can think of so many different things you could use it for. And if you don't have one, this is what you're going to want to get. This works really good. Get yourself some plumber's flux, some paste flux, and apply that just a little tiny bit, and you'll see how wonderful the solder will stick. I will use rubbing alcohol to remove that. I find that the affordable option is using paste plumber's flux, which pros, techs, and experts will tell you, never listen to PD, don't use that. But I hose everything down with, it's out of my reach. I've got a Ronson bottle full of rubbing alcohol. So I clean it. And I'm not kidding about that. Anytime, the only time I'm not using the flux is if they're two freshly tinned things. If they've already been tinned, I know I'm good. But I use flux on when I do PCB builds. I'm using it. The resistor leg sticks up. I've got a tool with a little needle, and I wipe a tiny bit on there, and I hit the top of the iron on the lug, and that will melt it, and it'll roll down and spread out around the hole, right where it needs to be, just perfect amount. And then I come in and put the iron at an angle, and then I come in with the with the solder, and I touch the solder directly to the soldering iron to start it. And then I get it where it looks good, and oftentimes, I'll right away, I'll put the iron back in the thing and snip the leads off, and then when I'm done, I go back and redo all of them. I just touch them up, because I'll find that some of them might have a little extra, some of them might need some. But that ensures that your rate of success when you fire it up the first time, it goes quite a bit higher. So those are just some soldering tips for me. And I know I used to try to preach to people about this, like you really need to use flux. And every time I did that, people said, my solder already has the flux in it. And then I see people doing this work without flux, and I see how unbelievably messy it is. And I think, one of the things you're not getting is that little bit of extra time that I do put the flux on and then taking it off. What you end up with is a much better, stronger bonds. And it looks neater. So it's not like using flux is a new thing. It takes a little longer, but what you get is a much cleaner solder joint. You get way better wetting action. So it's completely the opposite. The smart guy, the real experienced solderer, because I didn't use it until like around the year 2000. I was drinking with a plumber, and he said, "Let me ask you a question. All this fucking soldering you're doing all the time, are you using fucking flux?" And I said, "What's flux?" And he said, "Go get your shit." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Go get your shit." So I went home and I got my soldering iron and some wire, and he went into his plumbing supplies and brought this OT's plumber's flux, this little red tin, and put it on there, and we did these experiments while we were drinking beer and smoking. And ever since then, I saw with my own two eyes how you would try to get the solder to stick and it would roll off certain things. But if you put that flux on there, it would just like magic stick beautifully. The most beautiful solder joints I ever saw. And anytime there's a problem with a solder joint, adding a little bit of flux cures it. So that's my tip for you. This is the iron I use, and I'd love to hear your comments if you've got a better way or a better iron, because the whole reason that I approached this is because of the cheap replacement tips. And there isn't a better deal. Like, that's why I use this. So there may be better irons out there, but you can't get them for $2.99 and get 10 replacement tips for $1.99 shipped to your home. Sorry. Anyway, take care of yourselves. Best of luck, and